My name's Raby. Raby Simpson. You taught me in the 3rd grade, remember?
I found his suicide note. I don't know who it belonged to.
Hello, Kathy. This is Walter. Walter Cartwright. I bet you're wondering why I called.
I was 10 years old. My teacher told us to put our heads down on our desks and say a prayer.
He was 26, and although I didn't know him, I'm a minister. So I said this at his memorial service. First I said his name, and then I said that he was old enough to say, I am. And so he was. The proof of it gathered before me, in them, who had known him firsthand, in them, who were more than they might have been, because of his being.
I was in town for the day and I thought I'd look you up. I've never forgotten what you did for me.
Again I said his name, and then I said that even I, who had never met him, had met him there, and then, that day.
I don't know why I picked it up, but I just couldn't bring myself to throw it away.
Again I said his name, and then I said that he had been. This was certain, and he having been, must always be.
I can still remember sitting there with my forehead on my hands thinking, I will remember this moment forever.
A pebble does not enter a pond without a ripple, moving out and in time touching every single shore. We are all, every one of us, in this thing, together.
Everything begins with an inhale and an exhale, and never ends. Each inhale is a moment, a stone thrown into the water. Each exhale is an outcome, a ripple moving out and in time touching everything. If we observe what happens when a stone hits the water, we can see that something similar happens to us in our lives.
We feel the ripple that's created when other people enter our lives or leave them.
We also feel the effects of decisions that we make or are made for us.
And as we look back on our lives, we can see that the stones are always there and have the potential to create, like a stone's throw, many more ripples.
We present to you
A stone's throw.
an examination of our lives and the ripple effect that it has. The effect that decisions have on our lives.
Miss Margarita's Way by Robert Athady.
Getting Fired or Not Being Retained by Sandra Gilbert.
The effect that people have on our lives.
Search for Signs of Intelligent Life in the Universe by Jane Wagner.
A Teacher's Rewards by Robert Phillips.
The Next Contestant by Frank Gilroy.
And the effects of the past.
Living Out Loud by Anna Quindlen.
It was 25 years ago today by John Carroll.
The Day Our Illusions Died by Joyce Maynard. Nowadays, nothing can be done without technique. Each of our acts requires a fair amount of knowledge so they can be carried out.
There is just one way to face life.
To have a complete knowledge of all the possibilities of each decision and of all the possible effects that each decision results in.
Suppose, for example, Miss Margarita wants to take a walk. Once in the street, she must make her first decision.
Turning left or turning right?
Suppose she makes a right turn. Soon she will find an intersection offering 3 more directions.
Thus, she's faced with the following possibilities. 1,
Make a sharp left.
2,
Cross the street and continue in the same direction.
3,
Cross the street to the right and continue in the same direction perpendicular to the original direction.
4,
Cross the street to the left and continue in the opposite direction perpendicular to the original direction.
5,
Cross the street to the right and then cross again to the left and proceed in the original direction on the opposite sidewalk.
6,
Cross the street to the left and make another left and follow the direction opposite to the original direction on the opposite sidewalk.
7,
Cross the street straight ahead, then make a left and another left. Finally make a right turn, follow the right perpendicular to the original direction.
The 8th possibility is going right back home and calling it a day.
As you can see, we found 8 equally valid possibilities for our stroll. Each possibility a different direction leading yet to another possibility. In either case, each decision means 128 new possibilities to be considered.
So let's multiply 128 possibilities times 8 decisions. We have 1,024 street corners where Miss Margarita would arrive, and which would offer 8,192 possibilities to be considered.
Summing up,
Today, Miss Margarita will be faced with 24,713,433,511 possibilities before her stroll.
other people have taken and do take walks without any of these precautions. They'll pass each street corner without knowing what they're going to do at the next corner or what they could have done at the corner before. That's their problem.
I hope they get lost walking all over the damn city. Statistic. The U.S. Bureau of Missing Persons reports that in 1968, over 100,000 people disappeared, leaving no solid clues nor a trace, only a space in the lives of their friends.
Even I, who had never met him, had met him there, and them, that day.
Excuse me, is this yours?
Oh, that's my suicide note. Well, it's not exactly mine. I'm keeping it because, well, I don't know why I'm keeping it. I went to LA the other day and I found this suicide note in the street. I picked it up. I don't know why, it's usually more my nature to step over things, but something compelled me. I thought it might be a sign. Lately I've been looking for signs. The closer I get to menopause, the more metaphysical I become.
I had no idea who it belonged to, but I couldn't bring myself to throw it away. I was saddened by what she said in the note, but I felt even worse that I realized that losing the note could only add to her feeling of low self-esteem. I imagine there's only one thing more depressing than writing a suicide note, and that's losing the one you've just written.
For a while I kept it in my wallet, and then I grew concerned. Well, supposing I got hit by a car. I go unconscious, the paramedics come, they discover the note, they think it's mine. Well, it would seem very strange that I just happened to be carrying someone else's suicide note.
So I started keeping it at home in one of those fireproof boxes with my important papers. But then the thought, what if something happened? The note would be discovered and be given great importance because it was found with my important papers. So I began moving it around the house. But then I became concerned that I would misplace it, so I wrote a note to myself telling me where I had put it.
So now I have the suicide note and the note telling me where the suicide note was hidden. So I thought the best place to keep it would be my purse. But don't worry, I don't know explaining the whole thing. Go ahead. Say it.
You are possessed.
What is there about this phantom person that is so compelling? She seems so fragile and yet so courageous.
And yet, in the suicide note, there's more feeling, more forgiveness.
More capacity for life.
If she ever did commit suicide,
It would be out of feeling too much, not too little.
There was nothing dramatic. No terminal illness, no great tragedy. Just a lifetime of being dismissed by everyone.
Except me. For many, the largest waves are created by decisions that are out of our hands. And the largest stones are those stones thrown by bureaucracy.
Now, I got this letter from the vice president of crucial events. Oh, I tried not to open it, but it got out of its envelope like a special agent who slips through the doorway when no one's looking. And the letter regarded me gravely and took stock of me as if it were an uncle who hadn't seen me in 20 years. And then it said,
due to circumstances,
and something else I didn't hear. It said,
requiring that so in accordance with all established procedures, you are not being retained in your present position, that is.
The letter took a quick puff of a cigarette and grinned.
That is.
Said the letter.
You're fired. Awfully sorry to have to transmit this bad news.
The letter added, seeing my dismay.
But that's how things are, you know.
But I wasn't bothered. At least I didn't think I was. I just went out into the garden and sat down beside my friends, the rhododendrons, and I had some coffee, and I was calm. But in the meantime, while I wasn't looking, that letter took possession of my house.
The letter stretched itself out on the sofa and asked for a newspaper.
And it scrutinized with eyes of steel.
The letter unpacked its suitcase.
And hung up an astonishing number of fancy jackets.
All dark tweeds from Brooks Brothers.
In my bedroom closet.
The letter sent people on errands.
And ordered special delicacies from the supermarket, for its diet was unusual.
It liked wings and new hatched chickens.
The legs from live crabs.
And oysters, white as eyes.
The letter took over my study and replaced all my books with volumes from its own collection, all black paperbacks.
All untitled.
At last, I couldn't stand to be in the same house with that letter, watching it raid the refrigerator, seeing it
Read its black books.
So now I spend most of my time beneath the rhododendron. Oh, but my children, blessed, have gotten used to that letter just as if it were a bad-tempered old uncle with whom they've lived all their lives.
Now, while some ripples are visible to us, others do remain hidden until someone else makes them resurface.
And now, on the big challenge, we bring out our next contestant, Mr. Walter Cartwright. Nice to have you with us.
Thank you, it's nice to be here.
Now, I understand you're engaged.
Yes, sir, being married next Saturday.
Well, then I'm sure you can use some big challenge home furnishing.
Yes, sir, we could sure use them all right.
Well, they're yours, along with other gifts, too numerous to mention, provided you meet your big challenge. Now, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, here it is. We challenge you, Mr. Walter Cartwright, to call up an ex-girlfriend who knows you're engaged and to get a date. You can say whatever you like, with the exception that you're on our program or that you've broken your engagement. Do you accept your big challenge? Okay, I'll try it. All right, let's get started. Go into the big challenge isolation booth and dial the number. Good luck, Walter. Brrring, brrring, brrr.
Hello?
Hello, Kathy?
Yes, who's this?
Walter.
Walter who?
Walter Cartwright.
No, it isn't.
What?
This isn't Walter Cartwright.
Sure it is.
No, it isn't.
Why not?
It can't be.
Well, it is.
I think I'm gonna hang up now.
Look, remember the time at the circus when the elephant almost knocked your hat off?
Yes?
That foggy night we went to hear Frank Sinatra. Do you remember?
Yes.
Well, how would I know these things if I wasn't Walter Cartwright?
It is you.
How have you been, Kathy?
Fine, thanks. You?
No complaints.
That's good.
What?
I said that's good.
I bet you're wondering why I called.
Yes.
I want to see you.
Oh,
How about tomorrow night?
no, I can't tomorrow night.
Why not?
I have a date with this guy.
Then let's make it the next night.
I can't. I have a date with the same guy.
Well, then you pick a night. Any night.
Do you think it's all right? I mean, you're still engaged, aren't you?
Yes, but it's all right. Doris doesn't object if I see other girls.
I don't think it's right.
I just want to talk to you.
Why?
Because
Why?
it's important.
All right.
When?
Now, the secret bar. I'll meet you there in an hour.
Okay, it's real swell of you to do this.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Walter. Believe me, it's a pleasure. I'll see you in an hour. Bye now.
Bye.
My. Is this boy an operator or is this boy an operator? Well, you certainly met our big challenge. Now let me tell you what you've
Well,
won.
what about the date I just made?
You don't have to keep it. At this very minute, one of my assistants is calling her up to explain the whole thing. And for being such a good sport, she'll receive the brand new board version of our new show. But first, let me tell you what you won. A hydro surf spray, washer and dryer, a bedroom suite by Viking, a Royal Console radio, TV, and stereo, and the bonus jackpot, a silver service for 8 by Block, a marble top coffee table
Hello?
from Bowman and Fine,
Yes,
a
speaking.
blanket by HC, a random
Who?
automatic toaster, 2 weeks. All
What?
expenses paid at the beautiful Marlin Hotel in Miami Beach.
I don't
A digital
understand.
movie camera to
Could you
record
please
your
say that
happy stay
again?
there, and all because you met
Again?
your big challenge.
Yes. I see. I see.
Now, for 12 years of our lives, and for some of us much longer, we are influenced by educators.
But I don't want to do impromptu.
But rarely do teachers see the ripples they have created unless someone goes back. What'd you say your name was?
Raby Simpson, you taught me in the 3rd grade, remember?
Simpson. Yes, I suppose so.
Of course you do.
I was the boy with the white hair. I sat in the front row. You used to wrap my knuckles with your ruler.
Remember?
Oh, I wrapped a lot of knuckles in my day. Boys will be boys.
Well, I was in town for the day and I thought I'd look you up. I've never forgotten what you did for me.
Well, thank you, Mr. Simpson.
Call me Raby, like you always did.
Yes, Raby.
You once called me Baby Raby, and it caught on. That's what all the kids called me after
Did I?
that.
Oh, dear. Well, you must have done something babyish at the time. Tell me, what profession are you in, Mr. Raby?
Right now I'm unemployed.
Unemployed. I see. Well, how do you get along then?
Oh, I manage, one way or another. I've been pretty well taken care of these past 10 years.
Oh, I see. Living with your folks, is that it?
My folks are dead. They were dead when I was your student, if you'll remember. I lived with an aunt.
I'm sorry, I don't think I realized it at the time.
No, I don't think
you did. That's all right, Miss Schofield. You always did have a lot of students to look after.
Well, what do you remember about our year together that I might have forgotten? Do you remember Nathan Pillsbury? Oh, he was such a nice boy, so polite you could always tell good breeding.
Yeah, he was in my class, all right. He was a teacher's pet, you might say.
I never played favorites. That's a very bad practice.
And so's wrapping people's knuckles.
Oh, come now, Raby. Surely it was deserved if indeed I ever did wrap your knuckles.
Oh, you wrapped them all right.
Did I? Did I really? Well, what was it for? Do you remember? Gawking out the window, passing notes in
It
class.
wasn't for one thing. You did it lots of
In
times.
front of a whole class.
Well, it doesn't seem to have done you any harm. A little discipline never hurts anyone. Now, what business did you say you were in?
I've been in prison.
Prison? You've been in prison? Oh, I see. It's a joke.
You try staying behind the bars for 10 years, and you see if it's a joke.
Oh, I remember you. Now, you never were any good. No motivation, no follow-through. I knew where you'd end up. You always were a troublemaker. I remember the day you wrote those nasty, nasty words on the wall of the supply
I
closet.
never wrote those words.
Oh, you did, and I whacked your knuckles good if I remember
You
correctly.
whacked my knuckles good, but I never wrote those words.
Did. I never make mistakes like that. I always knew who needed strict discipline in my class. Now, I think you had better leave.
Can't do that just yet. I've got a score to settle.
Score. To settle?
Yeah. You see, I had a long time to figure it out. 10 long years to figure it out. You know, lots of nights I'd lie there and try and piece it all together of how I came to be there. Was it my aunt? No. She always did the best she could without any money. Was it the fellas I took up with in high school? No. Something happened before that. And then one night, it came to me. You were the one.
Me? The one for what?
The one who sent me there. Because you picked on me all the time. Made me out worse than I was. You never gave me the chance the other kids had. The other kids left me out of things because you were always saying that I was bad and that I was dirty just because my aunt couldn't keep me in a clean shirt like some of the other kids. You punished me for everything that happened. But the worst was the day of the words on the closet wall. You hit my hand so hard my knuckles bled. My hands were sore as boils for weeks.
That's an exaggeration.
No, it's not. They're my hands. I ought to know. And do you know who wrote the words on the closet wall? Do you know? Nathan Pillsbury. That's who. Nathan Pillsbury. Nathan Pillsbury. Nathan Pillsbury.
You let me go! Let me go!
I let you go after my scores. So put your hands on the table like this. Like this.
My mother died when I was 19, and for a long time it was all you needed to know about me. A kind of best pocket description of me. I'll meet you in the lobby in 10 minutes. I have brown hair. I'm on the short side. I have on a red jacket. And my mother died when I was 19. But that's not true anymore. For when I see a mother and daughter having lunch in a restaurant, or talking together on a crosstown bus, or shopping at Saks, I no longer want to murder them. I just stare a little longer than is polite, hoping that I can combine my observations with a half-remembered conversation. A few old dresses, a photograph or two, and recreate like an archaeologist of the soul. A relationship that will never exist.
He had been. This was certain.
And he having been.
Must always be.
For my parents, it was Pearl Harbor. I hear the conversation around the dinner table every year or so. I was in church, someone would say, away for the weekend, didn't really hear until Monday. Each narrative would be filled with specifics, clothing, food consumed, the precise weather. But on November 22nd, 1963, that's the one that people in my age range remember. That's my dinner table talk.
Well, I can remember November 22nd, 1963. More clearly than any other of my childhood. I was 10 years old, and I was watching the clock in our 5th grade classroom, impatient for school to let out. Christmas was coming. My family had just gotten a new dog, and my bedtime had been pushed back to 8:30. Life was filled with promise. The mother of our boy in class appeared at the door.
President Kennedy has been shot.
Some children started crying right then and there. My teacher told us to put our heads down on our desks and say a prayer. I can still remember sitting there with my forehead on my hands thinking, I will remember this moment forever.
I was buying milk. I had been married 2 months and 22 days. That morning, as I drove to the convenience store, the radio was on. President, Dallas, hard to hear. What's going on? I asked the guy behind the counter. He didn't know. He didn't care. I went back home and told my wife we should probably turn on the television. We were water young Marys. We had a television.
So we got to see the moment when Walter Cronkite was handed the piece of paper and winced. And before he said a word, we knew.
And it was like, oh.
Now, we did not turn to each other and immediately have a lively, informed discussion as to the probable impact of this event on the political future of the nation. But we just turned to each other and said,
Oh. We felt a lot younger than we had felt 15 minutes before. Maybe being an adult is not all that hot an idea.
I remember thinking, now what?
now
What?
It didn't matter whether you were a Republican or a Democrat. The shock and the pain was in the discovery that something you had never believed could happen had happened. It was not only a president that we lost that day, it was also a certain faith and innocence.
President Kennedy was the first person I knew who died. I didn't know him personally, of course.
A pebble does not enter a pond without a ripple.
But as president, he had been as much part of my life in 1963 as my fifth-grade teacher or the family I babysat for.
A ripple moving out and in time touching everything.
Before he was shot, I think I believed I would live forever.
We are all, every one of us.
The day he was shot was the first day that I truly understood that not only had the president died,
In this day, together.
but that someday,
So would I.
Every child has to find this out somewhere along the line.
In 1963, an entire generation found out.
And nothing ever was quite the same.
First I said his name, and then I said that he was old enough to say, I am. And so he was. The proof of it gathered before me in them who were more than they might have been because of his being. Nothing is lost. Nothing is wasted.
no
one,
None of us. Not one of us.
is that alone.